They told you he sold his soul. They told you the genius of Robert Johnson came from a midnight bargain, struck with the devil at a dark, lonely crossroads. It is the most seductive lie in music history, a Gothic fantasy perfectly crafted to cover a far more brutal, far more terrifying truth. The fact is, white America could not stomach the raw, undeniable excellence of a poor black man from the Jim Crow South. They could not accept that this revolution in music was earned through black discipline, black pain, and black spiritual power. So they incinerated his actual life story and replaced it with a ghost story. That lie is unraveling, and underneath it lies a truth drenched in blood and meant to stay hidden. That truth raises three crucial questions they never want you to ask. Why did white critics need the devil myth instead of just accepting black genius? What powerful African spiritual traditions were they really erasing when they called his music devil's music? And how did white musicians make millions off this stolen sound while Johnson's real story stayed buried? We are going to expose the answers to all three, revealing the hidden history behind the greatest myth in music. To understand the power in Johnson's fingers, you must first feel the dirt, the terror, and the casual brutality of the world that sought to destroy him. This was not just segregation. This was a landscape of sanctioned murder. Mississippi was a hunting ground. Robert Johnson was born in May 1911 in Hazelhurst, Mississippi, the very heart of Jim Crow America. This state was the capital of terror, recording over 539 documented lynchings between Reconstruction and the 1960s. That is a specific, shocking statistic that history books prefer to gloss over. The violence was so systemic that his mother, Julia, was constantly on the move, changing names just to keep her family alive after Robert's stepfather was chased out of town by a white mob. Life for black families in the Delta was chattel slavery under a new name: sharecropping. They were trapped in a cycle of debt with no rights, no protection, and constant surveillance. In this world, a black man could be lynched for a moment of perceived disrespect, making every performance an act of resistance. The juke joint was the only sanctuary, the only place black people could gather, breathe, and momentarily release the pressure. It was in this crucible of survival and terror that the blues became a documentation of reality, a powerful form of spiritual resistance. But this survival did not make him a star. That took a radical transformation they simply couldn't explain. Johnson didn't arrive in the world as a legend. He came as a casualty. The Delta had already stolen too much: his innocence, his hope, and, most cruelly, his young wife Virginia, who died in childbirth in 1930. Grief crushed him, and he stumbled through life like a shadow, carrying sorrow heavier than any song could hold. Then he disappeared. When he returned, the sound he unleashed tore through the Delta like wildfire. Sudden, impossible, raw. So intense that even veterans whispered of a pact with hell. His earliest performances offered little promise. Anguished, still raw, Johnson threw himself into music full-time, only to face relentless ridicule.
Blues falling down like hail, blues falling down like hail.
Son House, Willie Brown, and others mocked him openly, calling him a terrible guitarist, a man who couldn't keep a string intact. Every note seemed to betray him, every chord a reminder of failure and loss. Then came the year-long absence, a blank space in the Delta's memory. Some said he wandered the back roads, practicing in empty juke joints or graveyards, haunted by shadows of his past. Others imagined darker forces, secret lessons, whispered pacts. The truth remained quieter, yet more terrifying. Johnson turned his suffering, his rage, his heartbreak into something unimaginable. Upon his return, the Delta itself held its breath. Son House and the veterans stared in disbelief. The once awkward musician now commanded his guitar like a weapon. Each note cut deep, each chord burned with pain and fury. This sudden, impossible mastery sparked the devil myth, not because of dark bargains, but because no one could believe such power could emerge from grief, survival, and a spirit refusing to die. It's at this moment, at the nexus of brilliance and disbelief, that the myth begins. The truth about Robert Johnson, his discipline, his cultural roots, and the violence of his death was systematically replaced with a ghost story. If you believe these hidden truths need to be told, if you want to support a channel dedicated to exposing how Black brilliance is often reframed as supernatural or stolen, please subscribe right now. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the stories they're trying to keep from you. Now, back to the video. The devil didn't tutor Robert Johnson. A black man did. The soul-selling myth conveniently erased a year of brutal, grinding dedication and the master teacher, Ike Zimmerman, whose legacy was sacrificed to make the legend more exotic. That missing year was spent in the most mundane, unsatanic way possible: practice. The mentor they erased was named Ike Zimmerman. Johnson moved to Beauregard, Mississippi, and lived with Zimmerman, a master guitarist who taught him the complex, multi-layered finger-picking style that became his signature. Zimmerman's own daughter confirmed Johnson lived with them and that her daddy taught him guitar. This is the evidence of the cover-up. They used the graveyard at night as their practice spot, not for mysticism, but for peace. The lack of privacy in Jim Crow meant a cemetery was often the only truly private place they could practice undisturbed. The crossroads soul-selling story itself was stolen from a different, older bluesman named Tommy Johnson. In the 1960s, white researchers deliberately attached Tommy's lurid legend to Robert. This is why the myth mattered. A cursed soul was safer to celebrate than a black genius no one could deny. But the spiritual power in his lyrics still holds a secret they desperately wanted to bury. The force behind Johnson's music had nothing to do with the devil and everything to do with his roots. What white critics called devil worship was actually the deeply spiritual, culturally autonomous power of hoodoo, an African blueprint for survival and transformation that the Christianized world was absolutely terrified of. The spirituality that permeates Johnson's music is the language of hoodoo, rooted in West African traditions. The Yoruba concept of the Orisha Eshu Elegbada, known sometimes as Papa Legba, is the gatekeeper of the crossroads. He is a messenger and a trickster who opens doors. He is not the Christian Satan. When Johnson sang of the crossroads, every black person in the Delta understood the meaning. He was seeking spiritual power. White folklorists, unwilling to respect African spirituality, simplified and demonized this tradition, calling it devil worship. By making his music satanic, they conveniently stripped it of its African roots and its cultural weight. His entire legacy, the blueprint for generations of rock gods, rests on 29 fragile songs recorded in 2 brief, sweat-filled hotel sessions. These tracks weren't just music, they were a declaration of independence. Johnson recorded his music across 2 brief sessions, November 1936 in room 414 of the Gunter Hotel in San Antonio, Texas, and 7 months later in Dallas. 29 songs total. These few tracks are the entire bedrock of modern rock. His music featured an astonishingly innovative style, complex slide guitar, bent harmonies, and an eerie, high-pitched vocal that sounded unlike anything else.
If your man get personal, won't you have your fun?
His only hit in his lifetime, Terraplane Blues, sold about 5,000 copies in the South. This lack of initial success is the key to understanding the next part of the conspiracy. The music industry ignored him when he was alive, but when he was dead, he suddenly became the most profitable dead man in history. They made him a legend of cosmic damnation. But the true tragedy was far more human, far more immediate. Robert Johnson died not from a supernatural curse, but from a jealous man's poison. His death was a violent footnote. On August 13, 1938, Johnson was playing a dance at a jute joint known as the Three Forks. He was involved with the wife of the owner. In a fit of jealousy, the owner poisoned a bottle of whiskey with strychnine. Johnson suffered for 3 agonizing days before dying on August 16, 1938, becoming the first famous member of the 27 Club. Because he was a black man who died over a dispute involving a woman, the police performed no investigation. His death was barely registered. He was buried in an unmarked grave, his location still disputed. His life had zero value to the system, regardless of his genius. His music sat in a cold vault for 23 years.
I got to keep moving. Blood falling down like hail. Blood falling down like hail.
Before it was finally unearthed and packaged for a white audience. When it was, a generation of British rock stars built empires on his foundation. In 1961, Columbia Records released King of the Delta Blues Singers. The album sold to white folk revival audiences and was instantly transformative. Bob Dylan and the British Invasion, Keith Richards, Eric Clapton, Mick Jagger, all cited Johnson as their primary inspiration.
You know, you think you were getting a handle on playing the blues, and then to hear Johnson, you say, whoa, there's a long way to go yet, man.
These white musicians built platinum careers and became millionaires playing Johnson's music. The packaging on that 1961 record perpetuated the same lie, focusing solely on the mysterious, tortured artist.
Than Robert Johnson, you know, and that original record that I had, it's still the most powerful cry.
In 1990, the box set The Complete Recordings sold over 2 million copies. This answers the final question. They kept the myth alive because it made more money than the truth ever would. His estate received little, while the white power structure profited for decades. The Lie of the Crossroads is a beautiful distraction. It allows us to talk about the devil instead of the real demon. Systematic racism. Every lyric, every riff was a commentary on survival that the myth deliberately scrubbed clean. The myth of the devil's bargain conveniently erased all the systemic reasons for Johnson's life and art. The pain. Hellhound on my trail referred to the police bloodhounds used to hunt black people, not literal demons pursuing a cursed soul. The injustice. His murder was ignored, showing that in Jim Crow, a black life had no value. The myth removes his agency. It makes his brilliance a curse instead of a hard-won victory of survival. It's easier for people to accept that a poor black man was supernaturally gifted or cursed than to admit he was simply a genius who overcame white power advocacy through sheer talent and discipline. Every modern electric guitar solo, every blues rock riff is built on Robert Johnson's foundation. The myth persists today because the need to explain black excellence as something external, something non-human, persists. Whether it's the Crossroads legend or modern conspiracy theories about black celebrities being in the Illuminati, it's the same psychological energy, a refusal to simply acknowledge black brilliance as earned brilliance. As we reach the part where the truth can no longer hide in the shadows, Robert Johnson didn't sell his soul. He learned from a master, Zimmerman. His music didn't rise from darkness. It rose from African spirituality and the harsh survival of Jim Crow. He was not cursed. He was murdered in a world that refused to value his life. The myth allowed white America to celebrate his sound while conveniently forgetting the conditions he had to endure to create it. It erased his resilience and replaced it with a salacious ghost story. The real Robert Johnson was a genius of the Delta, a survivor of terror, and the true king of rock and roll. That's the truth they don't want you to know. But here's the real question. If you were trapped inside a system built to break you, would you resist it? Or try to survive by playing its game? Comment your answer below, because your perspective matters more than you think. If something inside you is stirring, that quiet ache in your chest, whispering that there's more truth buried in the dark, truth that's been waiting for someone brave enough to uncover it, don't ignore it. Click the video on your screen and continue uncovering the hidden secrets they've spent decades trying to bury in the shadows.